getting cold already. Hello everyone, it's Rachel. Welcome to my channel and to today's video where we are going to be talking about a topic that I had a lot of questions about before I gave birth to my son, and that is breastfeeding. I had so many questions about it and I read so many articles, I watched YouTube videos, I talked to my mom about it. I just had so many questions about what it was going to be like and what I could expect and how to deal with certain things. I'd heard at the beginning it could be a little bit challenging, it takes a little bit to adjust to, you can be a little bit sore. I didn't take any classes on it because when I got pregnant is when the pandemic hit, and so that kind of stuff all shut down. So it was pretty much just me researching and talking to my mom and asking questions, and that was how I kind of prepared myself. There were a bunch of things that I was not prepared for with breastfeeding that I didn't really expect and didn't really know how to deal with. So in this video, I'm just going to be sharing with you guys the tips and tricks I picked up on how to deal with certain things, some advice I have if you are a new breastfeeding mom or if you're pregnant and getting ready to breastfeed in however many months before your baby is born. Hopefully find this video helpful and informative, and if you do, be sure to leave it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. I've got some coffee here. You can go ahead and grab yourself a hot drink, and let's sit down and talk about breastfeeding. So the start of my breastfeeding journey was actually not as smooth as I would have liked. On top of just the whole having to learn breastfeeding and everything and recovering from just giving birth, Tobias was born with a rather large tongue tie. So it came to pretty much the tip of his tongue, so he could hardly stick his tongue out at all, which made breastfeeding pretty difficult. At the hospital, it didn't seem to be too much of a problem. It was, we were learning it and all that, so of course it was naturally challenging, but once we got home is when it got really difficult. Now the doctors at the hospital had told me that they actually didn't recommend that I clipped it unless we really needed to. She didn't really explain why or go into a whole lot of detail about it. She just said that we should leave it unless we needed to clip it, that he might have a bit of a lisp when he got older or started talking. And I kind of just took her word for it. I mean, she was a doctor, so we left it, and I shortly after regretted that decision because breastfeeding just got so hard. He was having a lot of trouble latching on, and he was going for longer than I would have liked without eating, because at the hospital they say every 2 to 3 hours, but he just couldn't seem to get it. So I was concerned he wasn't eating properly. He was still eating, he was getting some, but just not as much as he really needed. It was so stressful for me because I didn't know what to do. So we ended up actually giving him a bottle because he found that a lot easier. So I had heard a lot of things about, you don't really want to give them a bottle at a young age because of nipple confusion. But I mean, if he wasn't really nursing properly with breastfeeding, that was kind of my only other option. So that was kind of what we did to compensate when he couldn't seem to latch. Sometimes it kind of worked and other times it really didn't, and that's when we would bottle feed him. But about, I think it was around 8 days after he was born, we did end up getting it clipped, and I am so glad we did. It made a huge difference. Nursing suddenly got so much easier. My advice for you, if you have a baby with a tongue tie, is, of course, talk to your doctor, listen to what they have to say, but from my experience with a tongue-tied baby and people I've talked to who have had tongue-tied babies or have been a tongue-tied baby, they've pretty much all had it clipped or had to have their baby's tongue-tied clipped. I don't know if I've met anyone who didn't get their baby's tongue-tied clipped or didn't need to. So yes, of course, talk to your doctor, get their opinion on it, but from my experience, it will probably need to be clipped. And I know it made a huge difference for me and made breastfeeding so much easier and so much less stressful. So at the hospital, they told me, make sure you nurse him every 2 to 3 hours. If he needs to go 4 hours, that's okay, but I would not go past that. and I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure I stayed within that time, and I got so stressed about it when he went past. After a few months of breastfeeding and I kind of settled into the whole mom role thing and I kind of adjusted to having a baby, I realized that I probably didn't need to be so strict on it and so uptight about it and get anxious when he went longer than that. He knows when he's hungry and he will tell me. I mean, once the tongue tie was resolved, for that he had trouble eating, like I said. He would tell me he was hungry, but you know, he couldn't really get what he needed. So putting that aside, when he had fed a couple hours ago and he was sleeping, I probably didn't need to go and wake him up to feed him. He probably would have been fine if I let him sleep and fed him once he woke up. I had heard other moms talk about that before, and I really wish I had listened to them. So breastfeeding is definitely a new thing for your body once you have a baby, and it does take a little bit of adjusting too. I know I had a little bit of blistering and cracking from the first week or two after Tobias was born. It's something your body is not used to doing. It takes a little bit of time for it to adjust to it. Sorry, the lighting is a little bit weird. They gave me a cream to help keep my nipples from getting too dry and cracked, which really helps. Definitely moisturizing really helps, and not using soap in the shower because that just dries them out, and if they're already dry, I mean, that doesn't really help anything at all. I never really experienced strong contractions when I was nursing, which I know is something I had heard a lot about. Nursing helps your uterus go back to the size it was before, and so when you nurse, you'll get contractions, which is your uterus just shrinking back to its original size. I definitely felt some, but they were super mild and never really bothered me. I know other women have different experiences, and some women have it more painful, but in my experience it was never really that bad. For me, overall, breastfeeding was never a painful experience, even right from the beginning. It was uncomfortable and I would be sore, but I would never say it was painful. Now, of course, everyone's experience is different, but I was fortunate enough that my experience was good, and I never had a lot of pain associated with breastfeeding. And the first few months, when the baby is just a newborn, they don't really have any muscle strength. You know, they can't hold their head up, they can't hold their body up or anything. You can expect that you're going to be doing a lot of the work with holding them, of course, because, you know, if they can't sit up or hold themselves up or even hold their head up. So you're going to have to be doing all the work to hold them in position to feed them, which means you will probably want to have a bunch of pillows. I know you can get like the boppy nursing pillow, which I have tried using, and it kind of worked, but I found it was a little bit hard to use. Like in a rocking chair, it doesn't really fit. Like the arms of the rocking chair get in the way. Sometimes it wouldn't bring the baby up to the right height. So you kind of have to play around with what you have, different pillows. Sometimes I would just use the pillows on our bed, but you probably will need something to help bring the baby up to the right height, because just holding them the whole time is very hard on your back and your arms. I know I had a lot of like back, shoulder, neck pain for the first couple weeks, week or two when I first started breastfeeding, just because I'm not used to holding a baby for however long they eat. And so it can get pretty tiring. So you want to make sure you're in a good position, that you've got lots of support for your back, and that you have stuff to prop baby up to the right height so that you're not wearing your arms out holding them there. As they get older, they will be able to kind of support themselves more. Of course, now Tobias is at the age where he just kind of sits on my lap. But when they're younger, you're going to be doing a lot of the work, so you want to make sure you have things to support you so that you're not wearing your body out and making it more sore than it already is after birth. Something I had heard about but was not prepared for at all was engorgement. When your milk first comes in, usually there is quite a bit, and you can get very full, which can be pretty uncomfortable. And in my experience, when my milk came in, I had a baby who still had a tongue tie and was not eating really well. Oh, I'm so sorry for the lighting. This is just one of those days the sun keeps coming in and out, and Yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. It was so uncomfortable, and it was something no one at the hospital had really talked about at all, like how to deal with it, how to manage it, how to make it better. It got to a point actually where it was a bit painful. I went and looked up like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? And so there are a bunch of different ways that you can deal with engorgement and make it less uncomfortable. And this is something you usually deal with mostly at the beginning. At least that was my experience, and I think, you know, mostly you experience it at the beginning, but you can experience it kind of throughout breastfeeding. Just if your baby has gone longer than usual without feeding, as they start to feed less through the night, you can deal with engorgement in the night. So what I did to deal with engorgement, there are a couple different things, but the best thing obviously to do is to nurse your baby, because that really just, it gets all the milk out, relieves all of that buildup and everything, avoids clogged ducts, which can lead to mastitis, which is not a good thing. I have not experienced it, but I've heard about it, and yeah, you don't want to deal with that. It's not good. So nursing is obviously the best. But if maybe nursing just isn't an option at the time, there's just so much your baby can't eat all of it, then the next best thing to do is just to express it, whether that's pumping or hand expressing. I did get a manual pump just because there was so much milk that I couldn't get out, and I was having to bottle feed him to make sure he was getting enough to eat, so I had to pump to give him the milk. But I found that sometimes hand expressing was really better, and it did a better job. I had more control, because when you're pumping, it's kind of like when your baby's eating, it's just pulling everything out. But when you're hand expressing, you can kind of massage the areas that have a lot of clogged ducts. It'll like really feel really hard and solid in that area. So then just massaging it really helps just the milk get unclogged and come out, which is important to avoid like mastitis and such. Like I said, clogged ducts are not really a good thing. So if you're having any hard areas, then you want to make sure to get that milk out. Pumping is a great way. Well, nursing, pumping, hand expressing, and just massaging those areas. A great thing to do while massaging them is to use heat. So whether that's going and taking a hot shower, this is something I did a lot when I was dealing with all the engorgement, was just taking hot showers and just really massaging all of that milk out. Or you can even just take a hot cloth and use the hot cloth to kind of massage the milk out. And then in between, when you're not expressing the milk out, using cold compresses that can help avoid clogged ducts and the buildup of all the milk. So these are the things I did that really, really helped. One of the tools that was super helpful in this was the Haka breast pump. I know a lot of people use this for catching letdown, but when I was dealing with all the engorgement, I really loved to use it to catch all of the milk that I was expressing instead of just dumping it all down the sink. Now, sometimes like it was just easier to dump it all down the sink. The Haka was dirty or whatever, and I was super uncomfortable. Instead of taking the time to clean it and everything, I would just get it out. Or if there's just a little bit, then it wasn't really going to be worth saving it. So if you want to save just a little bit, you totally can, because breast milk also is like liquid gold. But there are some times where I would just express it and get rid of it. But most of the time I would use my Haka and I would kind of express into it so I could save all of that milk and freeze it for later. And that was great. It was really helpful. I can link it down below. It's one of my favorite baby items, kind of like an essential, a staple baby item for me. And especially when it comes to breastfeeding, like I absolutely love the Haka. It's so helpful. That was what I did to deal with engorgement, and it really, really helped, especially until Tobias got the tongue tie clipped and then he was able to nurse properly. Then the engorgement wasn't as big of a deal. And I still now do those things if I'm having a day where I'm just a bit more engorged. The heat, the nursing, pumping, all those things just really help to avoid clogged ducts. So when I first started nursing, I was using nursing bras because it just seemed like the most sensible thing to do. I went and got a couple from the store and I loved them. They were great. But then further along in my breastfeeding journey, I decided that I was just gonna get some bralettes, because I had heard some other moms who had breastfed talking about how using a bralette was really not any less convenient than using a nursing bra, and that it sometimes could be more comfortable. So I went and found some bralettes that I really liked. I found that it was actually like literally no difference in convenience. Actually, I almost found the bralettes to be more convenient than the nursing bras, because with the nursing bras there's like a little clip, and I found that sometimes if I only had one hand, it took so long to get the clip on. You know, as a mom, you have to learn to do a lot of things with one hand, and that was just something that I kind of struggled with. But with the bralette, all I had to do was pull it down, that was it, and then pull back up when he was done, and it was quick and it was easy. I have not gone back to nursing bras since. I thought that the nursing bras were going to be more convenient, and you know, I was a little concerned, like, what do I do if this doesn't really work for me? But it works great. I love it. So if you want to get nursing bras, you go right ahead. Like, there's nothing wrong with nursing bras. But if you're kind of not really into the whole nursing bra thing, I'm here to tell you bralettes work just as well. So for the first 3-ish months after your baby is born, that's when your body is trying to figure out how much milk your baby needs, because each baby is different and needs different amounts, whatever. So your body is going off of how often your baby feeds and how much they feed and that kind of thing to try to figure out how much milk needs to be produced. So during those 3 months is when you're the most likely to deal with leaks. And I dealt with a lot of them. And my body was just trying to figure things out, so I would have letdowns at the most random times. If I did not have a nursing pad in, I would get my bra all wet, and it was kind of uncomfortable. So for the first 3-ish months, I always made sure that I had a nursing pad in, and I even used them at night, because I found even at night there would be times when Elias would take Tobias and try to like get him to sleep while I went to bed early because I was really tired. This is in the first month or two after Tobias was born. Elias would take him and try to soothe him, get him to sleep while I went to bed. But I found if Tobias was crying, first of all, I couldn't really sleep because my body is like, hey, your baby's crying, don't go to sleep. And second, I would get really wet because my body would respond to my baby's crying with producing milk. So I had to wear nursing pads even at night. So I found nursing pads just to be really great, especially in those first 3 months. I don't have to use them as much now. I'm definitely not at night. My body kind of knows now how much milk Tobias needs, so I don't get random letdowns and I don't leak as much anymore. But in the first 3 months, it was just great to have that, so I didn't have to worry about soaking my clothes. So when your baby is small, it's really easy to just sit down, turn on the TV, or grab your phone, and while they're nursing, just watch something or scroll through Instagram, whatever, and like entertain yourself, because otherwise you're just kind of sitting there. I mean, it's nice just sitting there looking at your baby, but it's also nice sometimes to have something to entertain yourself. But I found as Tobias got older, I have a lot more trouble doing that just because he gets really distracted. If there's something on the TV, even if he's hungry, I mean, if it's really hungry, then he won't pay attention. But if he's just kind of hungry, he would rather watch than eat, and he'll kind of go back and forth, which is kind of inconvenient and not really fun for me. So sometimes I just have to take him into a room where it's quiet, or just turn off the TV and put my phone away so that he can just focus on eating instead of all the distractions around him. Sometimes even if Elias is talking to me, Tobias would rather look at his dad. As my baby got older, I found I had to put the distractions away more and more. I can still sometimes get away with watching the TV, but yeah, only when Tobias is really hungry and only wants to focus on eating. And then as he gets halfway through and he's less hungry, then he starts to focus more on the TV. My recommendation is enjoy the TV and phone time when your baby is young, but you'll probably have to do it less and less as your baby gets older. So I don't know about all babies, but I know that Tobias, when he eats, he likes to kind of move his hands around or his feet around. Like, he doesn't just lie there. I mean, he used to when he was newborn, but not anymore. Now he has to be kind of fidgeting with something, either like pulling my hair or, I don't know, just moving around. And I find that if his nails are not clipped, he will kind of like rake them down my neck, and my skin gets really irritated after a while of him doing that. So now I have to be careful that, you know, if his nails are getting a bit long, I probably want to clip them before feeding him, because otherwise my poor skin will just not thank me for it. It can get really uncomfortable. They're just grating their hands down your neck over and over again. and their nails are sharp. So if you notice your baby's nails are long, you might want to clip them before feeding them if your baby is anything like mine and likes to run his nails down your skin while he eats. Something I found out probably a month or two into breastfeeding was that if I was not hydrated enough or had not eaten enough, that I would start to get a bit lightheaded and dizzy throughout the day. When you're breastfeeding, your body is taking all the nutrients the baby will need and sending them to the baby. And if you have not had enough to eat or drink, then your body is lacking some of that because it was just given to your baby. So I had to be very careful, well, I still do, with making sure I'm eating enough and drinking enough. I kind of just assumed that, you know, pregnancy was when I was going to need to be eating more and snacking more and that kind of thing, drinking lots of water. I mean, I knew I was going to have to drink a lot of water with breastfeeding, but I didn't really consider that I was still going to be eating for two, because Tobias, I'm literally feeding him. So if I'm not eating enough, then I do not feel good. That's usually a signal to me that, hey, you've probably not eaten enough. You should go have something to eat. So now usually when I go out, I will bring some kind of snack with me, either like granola bar, nuts, even like a mandarin orange, just something for me to snack on. And I always try to bring a bottle of water so I can make sure I'm really hydrated. That's actually a really good way to boost your milk supply if you're having supply issues, is to stay hydrated and drink lots of water. So if you're thinking that, you know, once your baby's born, you can stop eating for two, not really. I'd keep all the snacks and stuff coming just to make sure you don't feel off later on in the day as you've been breastfeeding your baby. So that is what I've learned from almost 8 months now of breastfeeding. Those are my tips and tricks and just things I've picked up along the way. I hope you found this video helpful. So if you are pregnant and you're here just to learn about breastfeeding, I'd love it if you'd leave a comment down below just telling me how far along you are. And if you're a breastfeeding mom, leave a comment down below about what surprised you the most about breastfeeding. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have not already, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel and make lots of motherhood and lifestyle content here on YouTube. Hit the bell button so you don't miss my videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!